What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports NBA Hardwood show. And it's a special day. You don't have to see my backdrop. No more hoops for Hoop behind him. And we got our boy JT Hayes with us. Excited to have him here. It's been a little bit of time. So excited to do a show with you. JT, how are you doing on this beautiful Friday?
I'm miserable. I'm not good. I don't have a backdrop. I just feel completely left out, but I know one is coming. So actually, I'm doing pretty good. I was away the last couple of weeks, so I want to thank, I think, Bobby Gomes 1 week, and then my man Gary, who does, I think, every playbook right now that we have. Been working 24/7 on this stuff. I want to thank them for sitting in, and I'm excited. I'm excited to be back. 11 games. I get Hoop, who wins 200K every other day. So I'm hoping some of that rubs off, and we get to smash tonight on a Friday night. I feel frisky. It's Frisky Friday.
I like that.
Frisky Friday with this K. Philippe versus Sweet Travis hosting, JT. So it's a nice, frisky, sweet Friday. Excited for that. Ready to break down this slate. We got a really big one. We'll go over to Hoop with a nice little background, but the people need to know, Hoop, how did the carpet go, right? You had some carpet situations yesterday. So how is that going, and how is your Friday?
Yeah, yesterday was wild because if you watch the show, me, Mangone, and Glock, as the show was going live, your boy was battling the carpet installers, like literally as we were going live. The situation has been fully rectified. It took a lot though. I was a little nervous. Like I said, the guy installing the carpet was not small. This was like a big dude, like looked like a meathead steroid guy. The wife was having conversation with him. It wasn't going all that well. And yesterday, as we were coming on the show, she says, okay, now you got to come in. Like I'm some like big enforcer or something. I'm like, oh, great. I'm getting my ass kicked like in my own house by the carpet installers. This is not going to go well. But he had a different tune with me. He was apologetic. Got the situation fixed. Long story short, I didn't get to explain it yesterday, but ordered new carpet all throughout the house. They start in the basement. If you get new carpet, you're going to also go with new padding. We ordered the new padding to go with the new carpet. The installer decided that he wanted to stick with the old padding and then just put the new carpet over the old padding. Did not sit well with the wife and myself. I mean, that was a little, it's just common sense to me. Like, why would you order new carpet and stick with the old padding underneath? So like I said, we had to take a trip to the store today, talk to the manager. Situation is straightened out. We actually were able to upgrade the carpet as well. So it worked out, and no more carpet drama on my end. We're good to go, and we're going to pick some winners here on this NBA slate.
There you go. The wife is happy now. That way we can pick all the winners. JT, also, you didn't get to get a chance to celebrate your Braves. I know you hit the parade. So how was that little run the Braves went on for you? It seemed like you were having a good time.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. I mean, look, I think at the All-Star break, it would be fair to say, myself included, most people would have been happy if the Braves got a sniff of the wild card round. And even towards the end of the season, all the injuries, then you get to the postseason, Charlie Morton breaking his leg in the very first game, and you think, oh man, it's over. Just obviously a special team, a special group of guys. And of all of them, of all the players, the people in the franchise, happiest for Brian Snitker. You just don't see that kind of longevity, 45, 46 years in the same organization. And it was just great to see. And I read an article today in The Athletic, pretty good article about the difficulties in repeating in Major League Baseball right now. A lot of things going on with the labor agreement. So really happy for this. Going to enjoy it over the winter. Hopefully they'll re-sign Freddie and they can compete again next year. But it's a big win because, as you know, the city of Atlanta has been close a lot of times since I've been living here, especially, and been snatched out, a couple of bad breaks, a couple of bad performances, and it's good to see them bring it home.
Yeah, and also it's good to. I mean, I was rooting for your squad also throughout the playoffs. It's good to see, with baseball now starting to trend towards the NBA, where you see these powerhouse teams. You see the Dodgers get Max Scherzer and Trey Turner at the trade deadline. It's nice to see these teams that do it the right way, essentially win the championship. So I was pulling for your Braves. I was happy they got it done.
Yeah, and that's a good point because we're going to see that right now, just this week, right? About a week and a half ago, when we saw the Rams sign Von Miller, I was like, you know what? That's good. I like this. I like they're going for it. Now they sign OBJ, and I'm going to find it really hard to root for the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about OBJ, he's talented. I don't think they need to do it. I think it was a little overkill, and you never know what the mojo could do, right? You know, when you have the bad mojo in the locker room, Hoop, that could be real bad. You could have all the talent in the world, but we'll have to see. If he starts complaining, it could ruffle some feathers over there for our boy Cooper Kupp, who's the best receiver in the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Beckham. I think there's a chance like he's closer to being dusty than still good. I mean, he's only had like 2 100-yard receiving games in the last like 2 years, I think it is. I mean, you might know the exact numbers, but it was a pretty crazy stat. You would assume that he's had a better short-term stretch here, but it's just not the case. He's definitely not the receiver he once was. Be curious to see. I don't see why they needed to do that. Like Van Jefferson had been playing really well. Some nice connections on some deep balls with Stafford. You obviously have Woods. You have Kupp, Higbee. I don't think it was necessary, but I'm with JT. Like now, I can't really root for him, and I bet on them to win the Super Bowl and the conference and the division and everything. So they're like my most invested long-term bet, and I find myself saying, "F the money. I'm just going to root against him."
Yeah, and you could tell, like the Rams put out this statement, hey, welcome OBJ. He's all excited. But I found it pretty interesting. The response from Matt Stafford was pretty muted. He was like, yeah, it's always good to get additional weapons.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem too excited. And man, JT, it's nice to have some rich parents when you can put a lot of money on the Rams and say, I don't need to root for the Rams. I kind of want to root the other way. I mean,
because Mangone, I don't need to root for my long-term bets because you already locked me in with the winner, the Tom Brady MVP. I'm heavily invested with you, Tom Brady MVP, so I can lose the Rams bets and still be good.
Yeah, Hoop, that's a seamless segue, right? You talk about Run Pure Bets. You can sign up and get the bet side. You get everything. You don't just get DFS with us, Hoop, right? You get the college football, you get the bets as well. You can just get an extra $20 for that. So if you pay the $80 a month, which some of you don't, because you use the code RPS Heater 25, get you 25% off that first payment. And some of you are locked in for life too, as well, for some really good ones. So get on over and sign up for Run Pure Bets and Run Pure Sports. You can use that when you make all your decisions over here. Like if you see that Joey Work is on a K prop on a picture that you like, maybe then you go and push on him on DFS if he's like a low-owned guy, and he's the reason you ship it all. So that's definitely worth spending on. You get a nice little discount if you're at Run Pure Sports and at Run Pure Bets all together. Hoop, anything else? When are you making this like announcement for the people? You said there's an announcement coming. You also have there's a special guest on the Wood Show on Sunday. Yep. So tell the people that they need to show up for that possibly and break it all down for you.
Yeah, I mean, this Sunday for sure. Make sure. I mean, every Sunday you should be tuning into the Wood Show at 10 a.m. Eastern. But if you typically don't, make sure they're this week. We have a special guest right out of the gate going to be with us to start the show. So make sure you're there 10 a.m. Eastern time, special guest. And then, I've been teasing this big announcement that we have, and it's looking like it's probably going to be early next week. It's going to be a big opportunity for people that are members at Run Pure Sports. So it's a good time to get in so you can take advantage of this offer that we're hoping we can roll out next week. It's going to be very soon though, regardless.
All right. And the people in the chat are saying my mic sucks. Well, my mic was on the ground, so it should be better now.
It sounds way better now.
I always it gets in the way, and I just put it on the floor when I'm not in the show. So sometimes I forget. Simon's done a good job of remembering. Whenever I jump in the room, Simon's always like, man, go get your mic. I was like, oh, you're right. But we got Helmet Creator with us behind the scenes who made these awesome backdrops for us. But we are going to slide in and talk about this slate because, listen, we have a massive, massive slate. We're going to do our best to get through it. And there's some games we might just say, hey, listen, like we got to move on. There's nothing to talk about with those games. That's just how it goes on these slates. If we don't mention a player, don't think that we maybe don't like them. Check it out on the playbook. Check it out on the core plays or the cash chart. Right, JT? The cash chart. I mean, you always look at that right before you dive into the slate. Am I not wrong, JT?
The first thing I look at when I get up in the morning, even when it's blank, just to see the canvas and get excited about the beauty that's going to come.
All right,
I put the name in the chat of the special guest, so you guys can get excited about it.
There you go. So I'm going to stay away from the chat right now because I'm sure there's a lot going on. Don't want to see it. But we'll dive in. We'll talk about the Knicks. We'll talk about the Hornets. And we should talk about this game because both these teams, they struggle at defending the three-point line. The Hornets and the Knicks is a 224 total. And I think there's some exposure you can get this game. Do I want to spend up on LaMelo Ball at 9-9? I don't think so, but Terry Rozier is a good play on FanDuel and DraftKings. I think you can make a case for Kelly Oubre off the bench, who's been crushing it. Plumlee, I think, is really cheap at the center position. And on the Knicks side, there's some really cheap options over there. I think Fournier's got a good price. RJ Barrett on FanDuel specifically seems like someone that's popping. Mitchell Robinson on DK, another guy that I think is a pretty decent value. Hoop, I'll go to you first. This is the first game of the night, only one that locks at 7, but it is a good one. It's the Knicks, the Hornets. Who do you got here?
Yeah, it's one of those slates where it's a big slate and there's a standalone early game, the only game going off at 7 p.m. Eastern. And, it really depends on what sort of news we get prior to lock, because there are some pretty big things that we're waiting on. We have Steven Adams questionable. We have Halliburton questionable. Brandon Ingram, the Hawk situation with DeAndre Hunter and Bogdanovich, where we saw Kevin Huerter just absolutely go ballistic. Draymond Green is questionable. And there's not any of those questionable tags that are like slate changing, whether they're in or out, but it could provide us the opportunity to get some pretty solid value plays. So 7 p.m. Eastern game, we only have one. I am personally going to be fading it unless we get all the news, which we won't get. Now, if I was going to be playing here, Mitchell Robinson at 4K, I think is an okay value play, not a must play. I think he's an okay value play. In terms of the other guys though in this game, I'm not seeing anything I really like. I mean, LaMelo Ball is always a guy that can be in the tournament conversation. If you're MMEing, if you're playing 150 lineups, sure, give him a look, but I just don't see anything in this game that I need to lock in at 7 p.m. Eastern when it's the only 7 o'clock game. So I will almost certainly be fading this game.
All right, JT, how about you? Play or fade? 224 total, Knicks and Hornets. What are you doing here?
I definitely see Hoop's point here, where you have two teams where the rotations in particular recently have been very odd. You had the game the other night against Milwaukee, and it was a repeat of a game a week ago against Milwaukee where the Knicks left their bench in, left Derrick Rose in. Derrick Rose played something like 30 minutes. And then the Hornets side too, where you saw Kelly Oubre out of almost nowhere play something like 28, 29 minutes and go absolutely nuclear. But there are some price guys in this game. Hoop mentioned Mitchell Robinson at just 4K. Nerlens Noel is questionable. If he misses, I think Mitchell Robinson becomes a much better play. It's hard to call anyone in Thibodeau's offense, the way that he's been managing his rotations this year, a smash play. But if Noel is out, it's an upgrade to Robinson. It's an upgrade to Julius Randle. Kemba Walker's been playing like absolute dog shit, but he's just 5K on DraftKings. And if it's a night where he comes out and he hits his first couple of shots, then he could be in for a big game. That's a spot where the Hornets have been getting beat up at the point guard position. Even Evan Fournier is down to 4.8, which is a price point we haven't seen him at. And then Gordon Hayward on the other side at 6.6. So I think there's games later on that are more attractive, but some of the price plays here are interesting to me. Just don't know how much I'll get of them. And again, it does depend on some news that's going to come out.
All right, let's move on though. Again, decent game you can go to, but I understand the merit in just saying, hey, let's fade it. Like, let's move on to the next ones. It's a big slate. There's news that can come. I do think you can get exposure to it, but you just got to kind of, navigate the slate the way that you think is best. Let's go on over to the Pistons and the Cavaliers. Very, very low total, 200.5, but Kelly Olynyk, he is out. We've had the Cavs, who are very shorthanded, and they're kind of just playing more of a tight rotation. So I do think there is some opportunity here to be gained. Jared Allen's been playing some great minutes. Darius Garland is still at a pretty decent price tag. And Ricky Rubio has just been smashing off the bench. And then Cade Cunningham's another guy where, man, the volume is there. The price is still not too bad. Hoop, I'll go over to you because, hey, you are our Pistons expert around here. Give me the breakdown. Pistons, Cavs, absolute shootout. I'm sure you will be watching this game all night long.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of ironic. I mean, we're looking at this and basically barely over 200, and that's a low total. But from a fantasy perspective, I think there's actually a lot to like here. On the Pistons side, no Kelly Olynyk, and on the surface, that doesn't seem like a huge injury situation, but got Isaiah Stewart sitting here at 4.3K that really should stabilize his role. The minutes have been all over. You have to imagine, though, now he's going to be locked into mid-20s and just a very active guy when he's on the court. So he's 4.3K on DK, strong value play. I like Cade Cunningham. I want to continue to play this guy. I think, by the time the season's over, we're probably paying 7.5K, 8K for him. And he's coming in at 5.9K. He continues to play right around 30 minutes. Two of his last three games have been 35 fantasy points or better. I do like him. I don't think he's like a building block type guy, but if I finish it's 5.6K. If I finish my lineups at 5.6K, I'd be totally fine just rolling with Cade Cunningham here. And then on the Cleveland side, very tight rotation. Like you said, Darius Garland playing a ton of minutes. I think he's fine. Ricky Rubio continues to play really well. Mobley and Jared Allen, I think, are both in play here. And then a full punt in Dean Wade. He's not great. He's, the ceiling is not super high, but he's going to play upper 20s in terms of minutes. If he can get you 20 fantasy points, you'll take it. And I think he's capable of doing that tonight. So really, I'm seeing like 6 or 7 plays in this game, which is wild because it is the lowest total on the slate by about 11 or 10 full points. So it's actually a pretty good game for fantasy purposes.
Yep, definitely a pretty good one. Guys, hit that like, hit that subscribe on the video. Helps us out a ton. I know we don't want to get hoop on you guys, so let's just get them in now. Hit that like real quick. Not too hard to do. JT, I'll go over to you. Pretty good game here. Again, it is a low total, but the minutes are nice. We saw the Raptors. They're a team we don't love their roster, and their totals are low, but they do play a secure amount of minutes, and the Cavs are kind of like a light version of the Raptors right now with the amount of minutes these guys are seeing, and we got some Pistons stuff. So, JT, break it all down for me. What are you doing here with the Pistons and the Cavs?
Yeah, especially without Sexton. I agree with Garland and Rubio getting all those minutes. Hoop mentioned Stewart. It's my favorite play in this game. 4-3. This is a guy who even earlier in the season was 6-1. It's sort of one of the curiosities of the early part of this NBA season is Stewart was a guy who was getting 30 minutes at the end of last season. It's like Dwayne Casey forgot completely about what this guy can do. And he's been getting 18 to 24, sometimes it's 16, but at 4-3 with no Olynyk to come in behind him, I like that play a lot. On the Cavs side, I just don't know. I think there are other plays. I want to pay down a little bit, at least at one of the centers. So I think I'm going to skip Jared Allen. Mobley, I think, is fine. I do think that the Pistons are vulnerable there. And then agree. I think Cunningham is in play, and I think you can play one of Garland or Rubio. This isn't a game I'm going to stack, but I do think there are pieces that you can go to.
Yep, definitely pieces that you can go to. Let's head on over to the next game where we got the Bucks and the Celtics playing. And we do have some value over there because Jaylen Brown, we haven't seen him much this week or the Celtics, but Jaylen Brown, he has been out, and this opens up some opportunities here for these guys. Dennis Schroeder, I think, is in play. You can make an argument for Marcus Smart. Robert Williams is still cheap, and we know the upside that he has at the price. And Josh Richardson, another guy, 3.3K, feels like a pretty good value on this slate. It helps you get in all those studs, and it is a big slate with a lot of studs that you want to spend on. And then the Bucks side, you got Giannis, who is one of those studs that you would love to spend on. Bobby Portis, who has been absolutely crushing so far over the past week or so. So he's someone that I definitely been getting exposure to. I'm sure I will look to maybe get some exposure to him today as well. And then even Drew Holiday, he's another guy that's been pretty decent and has a nice price tag at 6.6K. Hoop, Bucks Celtics feels like a good game to watch and not a bad fantasy game with it only being a 1-point spread and a 211 total.
Yeah, with the Celtics side, we're finally starting to see a stable type rotation here without Jaylen Brown, and the guys that have benefited the most, it seems like Dennis Schroeder, where we're looking at a lot of minutes. He's played 38, 34 minutes, so probably mid 30s you can count on. DK is only 6.2K, very capable of having a good game here. And then Josh Richardson has kind of turned into the sixth man, and he's playing 30 minutes too. So 30 minutes for Josh Richardson, who got off to a rough start so far this season, but he's only 3.3K. If he's going to play 30 minutes, I think he's a really good value play. Robert Williams has kind of started to play a little bit better with Jaylen Brown. So I'm going to be looking at these cheaper guys. On the Bucks side, so DraftKings is finally doing a better job with pricing these stars, and they're getting them way up there. So now we have Giannis at 12K, which is where he should be. I think he's a fine option. I don't think he's like a must type play. When we're getting Giannis at like 10.5K, like he's been in the past, yeah, you just play him. It's up to 12K now. I don't think you absolutely have to play him. But if you if you have the salary and you want to, it's fine. I think I probably prefer Jokic over him if I'm deciding between a stud up in this top range. So yeah, I'm more interest definitely on the Boston side. It's going to be Schroeder, it's going to be Josh Richardson, and maybe a little Robert Williams for me. I think they're all pretty solid plays tonight.
Yep, all good plays. JT, what are you doing here on this slate with the Celtics and Bucks? Very good game to target, I think, but it is a slate that it's locks at 7:30, right? You get locked into some of these guys. Maybe you lose some flexibility. How are you handling these value plays?
Yeah, I agree with Hoop on the guards here. I mean, just in the last week, Tyrese Maxey torched this team, Shake Milton in that same game, and then Derrick Rose twice going for close to 50 DK points. So I like the call on Schroeder and like the call on Richardson. Richardson's going to be popular, but hard to argue with that price for, like Hoop said, 30 minutes of this guy. And then Robert Williams, center has been doing well too, a little bit, maybe a little bit smaller there under the basket without Brook Lopez. So it's been a good spot to attack as well. And the minutes for Williams seem to have stabilized a little bit here in the last couple of weeks.
Sorry about that. But yes, JT, I didn't hear much you said. I was sending something over to someone. So but we got this, we got it under control. I will listen to your play of the day. You know why I'll listen to your play of the day, JT? Because we got the Eiffel Tower play of the day back today, baby. And we got rich parents to send us there too on a nice little flight. So stay tuned, hit that like and subscribe. That way you can get JT's play because, hey, we got Mr. Damian Lillard on the slate. You never know if he will be the play, which, hey, JT, that's a perfect segue because now we're at the 8 o'clock games and Portland, they have not been great this year, but they are playing Houston. And JT, let me go right back to you because Mr. Damian Lillard is expensive over on DraftKings 9.8. FanDuel is 8.5, where I think he's a much better play. But the Rockets, they are a team that you want to target, and they got Kevin Porter Jr. on the opposite side, who is a good option as well. JT, break it down for me. 220.5 total. What are you doing here with the Rockets and the Blazers?
Yeah, I love Dame as much as anyone else. I don't know if this is the spot for Dame on this slate, on an 11-game slate at his price point. Usually like to get him low nines, a little bit cheaper than he is here. You do have, it depends. If Norman Powell, who is questionable, is out, then it certainly opens up some more shots for both Dame as well as CJ. But Jusuf Nurkic here is just 7K in a matchup where centers have been eating against Houston, even with Christian Wood in the lineup. They're giving up an average of 61 DraftKings points to opposing centers. At just 7K, he's in that mid-range that I think is going to go overlooked at the position here. If Norman Powell is in at just 5.5, it's a fantastic matchup for him. And then really on the other side of the Rockets, outside of if I'm multi-entering, looking at Jalen Green at just 5.2, I don't know that I have a lot of interest otherwise in this game.
JT, I know you don't have as much interest in this game, but you need to talk to Derek Glegg. He said, Damian who, man, going? It's Damian Lillard, right? JT, tell the people how to say his name correctly.
Yeah, the first time I came on the NBA shows last season, it was kind of eye-opening to see how people were mispronouncing the good boy's name. And it's just kind of crazy. I let everybody know how well I know his family, and the Lillards have been a piece of my life since I was a young boy. So Damian Lillard, and that's the way it's said. That's the way it's pronounced, much the same way that Austin Eckler is how he really likes to have his name pronounced. But don't worry about it. You call him what you want, pronounce his name the way you want. I'm sure he's not going to get upset.
Yeah, Hoop, at Run Pure Sports, we call him Damian Lillard. Some people call him Damian Lillard. We call him Damian Lillard, though, Hoop, right? That's the exact.
So, like in life, like one important aspect is go to the professionals. Like if you're not sure of something, go to the professionals. Go to the inside source. That's why we have JT. JT has built a network of just relationships with family members of professional athletes, and he understands the family tree. He understands the history of these names, and it's just so valuable. So if there's ever any question, you just go with what JT knows, and that's what we're doing here. Damian Lillard for sure.
Lineage is important, Hoop. You bring up a great point. Lineage is important, and it's everything. Family is everything to these players. I understand that.
And Hoop,
can't disrespect them by mispronouncing their name,
That's very hurtful.
Hoop, if we're going to go to an expert, right? Let's go to a guy named Hoop to talk about some hoops. Let's talk about the Rockets and the Blazers. This is a game that should be decent for fantasy. I think KBJ is a better play for FanDuel than he is DraftKings, but you can play him on both sites. And then, of course, Mr. Lillard, we got McCollum, we got Nurkic, even Covington at 4-2 is not too bad, especially because the Blazers have been going a little bit more with their small ball lineups. I don't know how much they'll do it in this matchup, but they have liked it a little bit. What are you doing here with this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think more like FanDuel type plays. Like you talked about Lillard. Sorry, man. So disrespectful. Damian Lillard on FanDuel is 8.5K. Definitely a better play than on DK, where he's 9.8K and a lot closer to some of these stars. CJ McCollum, they keep fluctuating his price on DK. It's either like up over 8K or like down like by 7K. I prefer him when he's down by like 7K. Tonight he's at 8.2. Covington, like you said, at 4.2. I don't mind him. Like in a close game, he'll play like 35 minutes. I think he's fine as like a last guy in type play. The one thing I will say on DK, if you're playing on DraftKings, center is like absolutely loaded tonight. There's so many center plays. We have a really good value that we're going to hit on later in this slate that's center. So it's really hard to overcommit to some of these centers, especially early on. On the Rockets side, I don't know. I mean, it's a full slate here. I just don't see any reason to get overly invested in the Rocket side of things. If I was going to play anyone, though, it would be the guy you mentioned. Kevin Porter Jr. continues to have a pretty solid usage rate, and he's capable of putting up 40, 50 fantasy points. But overall, not a lot of love here. Lillard on FanDuel, though.
Yeah, I think you could make a case for Tate and Green. It's not like the best slate for it, but I do think that they are guys that if you're doing like 150 or even 20 max, I think you could get exposure to it. But I do want to head on over to the next game. And we got our boy, Mr. Kevin Fallick in the chat. And JT, I want to go to you when we talk about this game because it's the Kings and it's the Thunder. And the Kings, they don't have Buddy Hield, or not Buddy Hield. They don't have, who are they missing? I'm blanking on the guy. Who is it that is out? Crap.
Well, Halliburton is questionable.
Halliburton, that's what it is. But the reason I asked this, JT, and the reason why I'm confused about Halliburton is because I don't think I've seen Kevin Fallick drop the charts in the chat. There has to be enough data. We've had Halliburton out 2 games. JT, demand the charts from K Fallick. Or, I mean, what are we supposed to do here about that?
We had a lively discussion about who the Bulls might play as their 8th guy off the bench today in Discord. That was pretty interesting. I enjoyed that. Because I do think there's value in that discussion. We'll talk about it when we get to the Warriors game. But so Sacramento and Oklahoma City, if you want to talk about chaotic, crack-induced rotations, let's start on the Sacramento side, right? I don't understand what's going on with the Marvin Bagley situation. I think it's absolutely malfeasance on the part of Luke Walton and the Kings.
JT, you haven't talked to Marvin Bagley's dad about this yet?
I'm going to. Trust me, I'm going to, because he may need a good investigator to dig up some dirt the way that Harrison Barnes has dirt apparently on Luke Walton, because Barnes, the only guy on this team who consistently sees, this guy plays like 38, 39 minutes a game. So this is a great matchup for both teams. Both teams defensively are flawed, particularly down low. The Sacramento Kings giving up the 4th most points, 5th most points to opposing centers. But I want to play some of these guys. Like Darius Baisley is 4.9 on DraftKings. You've got Shea in this matchup. You've got Lou Dort at 4.5. They're just not exciting on an 11-game slate. You've got Giddey there. But on the flip side, I want to play, I think some of these guys on the Kings are very talented. But I look at Richaun Holmes and the minutes he's getting, and it's been fluctuating. Sometimes it's 34. Sometimes it's 26. You just don't know. He's priced at a reasonable point on DraftKings, 6-7. But like Hoop said, there's probably, I wrote down 13 or 14 centers on this slate that are in play just based on their price point or matchup. And so do I want to take a risk with Luke Walton's rotations here, even if it's a matchup that they should smash? If Halliburton is back, Fox has been great last couple of games, but that eats into it. He plays all of these guards. You're going to see Davion Mitchell get 20 minutes. Hield will get his time. Halliburton will get his time. You've got Mo Harkless in there. He plays all these guys. It's really tough to dissect who's going to get the minutes on that side of the ball. I feel most comfortable in this game with Basley and Dort at their prices on the Oklahoma City side.
Yeah, I like Dort. I like Baisley. I also think SGA is a good option. He does feel pricey, but man, he is attacking the hoop right now. And he is definitely, out there doing pretty well. The rebounds and assists are there, the steals, and he hasn't even shot that great. So there is upside if he does well in the matchup, which he certainly could. And you mentioned Rashawn Holmes, JT, and I want to go back to you real quick with Holmes. I know Luke Walton is not a coach to typically trust, but he did say, like, listen, we need to get Rashawn the ball more. That's on me. It is a spot where Rashawn Holmes can smash, and you didn't bring up good points. The center position is deep today. I like him at 6'7". I don't know if I get a lot of exposure to him today, but I think I want to try to, because he's someone that he's already won slates this year. He had like 50 fantasy points in one game, and at that price at 6.7, if you get 50 fantasy points, which it is the Thunder. If you look, Drew Eubanks the other day, he had in 22 minutes, I think he had a double-double, 14-11, had like 3 blocks. So this is a matchup where a guy like Rashawn Holmes, if you give him 30 minutes, he could easily hit 50 fantasy points here.
Positionally from a standpoint of where I would want to start my lineups on this slate, it's the center against Oklahoma and it's the center against the Kings. So I agree with you. And in my lineups, I'm definitely going to have some Rashawn Holmes. If I was playing a single entry higher dollar, it's really tough to trust these rotations right now because I don't know that he's going to get the minutes. Now, to your point, Eubanks smashed in 22 minutes. Holmes is a much stronger point per dollar player. So like I said, this game is great on paper. The rotations are the troubling part.
All right, Hoop, I'll go over to you. Oklahoma City Thunder and the Kings. It's a game that's rough, but I think there is a lot of value. It's just, do you want to take the chance on it? I mean, De'Aaron Fox is definitely a good spend-up option. Harrison Barnes, he's had a couple of rough games, but he is definitely someone that's going to put up a ton of shots. He has the opportunity. Holmes, another guy you can look at. The news is really important with Halliburton. And on the other side, there's going to be OKC values that do get there. It's just the question is which ones. I think Lou Dort is one that I definitely like a lot. I think they're going to use him a ton defensively. There's so many guards that he can defend, so I like Lou Dort at 4-5. How about you? You like Dort, and do you like anyone else in this game?
Yeah, I like Dort. SGA, I think the price tag on him will keep people off, but man, he's been pretty darn consistent. I mean, the problem is the price tag's up there now where we need mid 40s, and that's kind of where he's been, low to mid 40s in terms of fantasy points on an 11-game slate. I don't know if 40 fantasy points from an 8.8K guy is going to be enough. So he's probably priced out for me. He hasn't really shown that 60 fantasy point upside that you really want if you're going to pay almost 9K for a guy. So I'd prefer Dort, maybe Giddey. I mean, Giddey's been really solid, 30 minutes and he's shown, 35, 40 fantasy point upside. And then on the King side, everyone's kind of wondering what was going on with De'Aaron Fox early on in the season. I think it's pretty clear now with what we've seen with Halliburton being out the last couple of games. De'Aaron Fox he's back to the old De'Aaron Fox. So if Halliburton's out tonight, I really like De'Aaron Fox at 8.4K. I think he's a phenomenal play. Everyone also is just tournament plays. Like Rashawn Holmes has been playing so well this season. 18 minutes last game, 25 minutes. Like, why is he not playing 30 minutes? Like, it just doesn't make sense. But that's what you get with Luke Walton. He's a moron when it comes to coaching basketball teams. So, it's going to just be De'Aaron Fox for me if Halliburton's out. If Halliburton's in, I'm just avoiding the Kings. Lou Dort, Giddey would be my favorite plays on the OKC side of things.
Can I give you the list of names of who's getting minutes over Rashawn Holmes?
Let's hear it.
I know who it is. So yeah, go for it, JT.
So let's Mo Harkless. Okay. Chupacabra Metu is a guy that's getting minutes over Rashawn Holmes.
The other day, I willingly sat down and watched Kings Spurs and watched the whole game, and they were trying to mount a comeback in that one, and then they started coming back, and what happened was Luke Walton just kept the guys in that were crushing in the floor. So that's partially why, but Luke Walton is an idiot and will find a way not to play his best players. You are correct, JT.
Yeah, I mean, I saw you tweet about that, and it's just, I don't understand. Who's not getting minutes is Marvin Bagley. And there's this whole thing about, he refused to go in I would refuse too. I mean, this is just absolutely nonsensical. And then the story about why they wouldn't trade him and said, well, we couldn't get adequate value. You're not going to build the guy's value by playing guys like Metu and Mo Harkless over him. So it's just really a sad situation. I agree completely with Hoop. If Halliburton's in, I think it just takes me off of this team completely because these guys, you just can't rely on the minutes and the rotations.
All right, we talked enough about that game. Let's move on and talk about the Nets and the Pelicans. Hoop, I'm going to go over to you because, hey, Brandon Ingram, he could play, he could not. He's questionable. If he does not play, man, Valanciunas is going to dominate this game. I would like to have the news ahead of time. I don't know when we'll get it. It's an 8 o'clock game, so I'm expecting it to come at 6:30 Eastern, 30 minutes before a lock. But I don't know if we'll get it. And then we got Josh Hart. He's someone that I think you can consider at 5'4". Nickeil Alexander-Walker has a ceiling. So does Devontae Graham. And I do think with all of the stars being priced up, Hoop, if you look, Giannis, Jokic, the way the DK algorithm is, James Harden is sitting there at a decent price tag for a stud at 10.4K. If you told me James Harden, was this season played out how it should have played so far, James Harden would probably be up with these guys at 11-2. But I do think he's had a little bit of a slow start. And I do think at 10-4, he might be one of the better spend up options on DraftKings, Hoop. What do you think about that? And what do you think of these Pelicans plays if Ingram is in or out?
Yeah, mostly in lockstep with you. I mean, we have a lot of studs that are priced way up there. Like I said, Giannis is at 12K. Jokic is at 11.7. James Harden's sitting there $1,300 cheaper than Jokic, and it's very appealing. Yes, in terms of raw fantasy points, I think Jokic gets more than James Harden, but that $1,300 goes a long way. So 10.4K, I do like James Harden as a spend up today. And then on the Pelican side, a lot of it has to do with Brandon Ingram. He did practice in full for the first time yesterday. I assume he returns tonight. It seems pretty likely that he's finally going to return. If he returns, can't play any of these Pelicans guys. They're all priced up because of playing with him out. Valanciunas is all the way up to 9.3. He's been playing great, but with Ingram back, I don't think I can play anyone here. I assume Ingram's in. If he's not, then yeah, guys like Josh Hart become more interesting. Alexander Walker become more interesting. Valanciunas becomes more interesting. But I really do think Ingram plays today, returned to practice in full as his first full practice in a while. So I'm assuming he's in.
All right, JT, I'll go over to you because James Harden had a nice Thursday night in New Orleans, and you know the parents, you got all the details. Was James Harden at the strip club in New Orleans? Because if he was, I think that could be a struggle for him. But if he was not, if he stayed in his hotel, got a nice salad or a nice little meal, and he's all ready and went to practice today, then James Harden might be in a really good spot to have a really good game against this Pelicans team that you can attack with the guards. Do you like James Harden? Do you like LaMarcus Aldridge? And do you like any of these Pelicans here?
Can you imagine how wild these guys are going now that the COVID restrictions have been reduced? I mean, 2.5 seasons of just absolute lockdown, and now these guys are they're going nuts. So whether or not he was at a club or not, I'm sure he was having a good time. But I don't think it matters. I think it's a good point that he is probably, of the guys who are priced above that 10K range, he's probably the one that is most reasonably priced, right? He's closest to where his true price point is, even underpriced here. So I think that's a good point. I think Ingram likely plays. I agree with that assessment. I think that makes this a little bit better for James Harden. There's a better chance that perhaps this game stays competitive for a bit longer. I do like LaMarcus Aldridge. It's hard to ignore what he's doing in 24, 25 minutes in a good matchup down low against the Pelicans. Then one guy that the price point kind of stood out to me, he hasn't really gotten it going this year, certainly not the way that he had it going last year, but he's now priced under 4K. And if this game does stay competitive, Bruce Brown at 3.9 is going to get 30, 31 minutes against a defense that, as you point out, struggles with guards, particularly shooting guards. So I like Bruce Brown a little bit for an off the chalk kind of low price play.
Yeah, and it is worth mentioning that Steve Nash is not really staggering his stars right now because he's trying to let them play together and get a little bit of a break. He doesn't want them, overdoing it early in the season. And hey, a guy that can help you fill that gap, that's Bruce Brown. They're going to need him on the floor, chasing around those guards. So I do agree on Bruce Brown being a really good play, and he's a good rebounder too. And I think in this spot where they play a little bit more smaller, if Ingram's not in there, could be a good spot for him. I like the call there, JT. Let's move on though, and this could be a good catch me up game. But before we do that, hit the like, hit the subscribe on the video, guys. It helps us out a ton. Hoop, we're at about 450 watching. They're at like 200 likes. Do we want to pick a number now and let the people know? I think they've done a good job, and I think they're going to get it home, though.
Yeah, great job so far on the likes. I mean, great ratio. We're at 203. Get us to 250, and that'll get us the plays of the day. And I mean, you don't want to miss out on Eiffel Tower play of the day on Friday night. Friday night, missing the Eiffel Tower, that's just bad mojo. So make sure get us to 250. I'm confident you guys will. And that should be the last time we need to discuss the likes.
Yep. And on top of that, Hoop, we get to hang out with the rich parents on a nice jet flying to France. So that'll be exciting. But Hoop, I think it's a good. What were you say, JT?
Plush seating on that jet.
Oh, very plush.
There we go. You love to see it. Mavericks, Spurs, Hoop. I think this is a quick one. I mean, I think Murray is really expensive. I don't want to play Porzingis. I know he is cheap. He's someone I'm going to consider, but I'm going to do my best to hit the X button on him. And then Luka, he's 11-1. I think there's better stars to spend on. So I know in my tournaments, I'm pretty sure I'm Xing this game, cash games. I'm considering some guys, but how about you? I want to get your take here on the Spurs and the Mavs.
Yeah. I'll give my bet of the day is the Spurs. I already bet it. I love the Spurs tonight, plus 2.5 here. I just continue to think the Mavericks are an overrated team. So just to throw that out there, the rich parents bet of the day, just going to give it to you right now. It's the Spurs plus the 2.5. In terms of DFS, Mangone, me and you need like an intervention, or we have to figure this out on Porzingis. Okay. He's cheap. Coming off the big game. I mean, I know you said you don't want to play him, but you weren't very convincing when you said that. I mean, come on, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to play him, but we'll have to see. This is what I'm hoping. I think I'm going to consider him, and then I'm going to do my best because we got the time to figure it out. I'm going to spend 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock Eastern, right? I'm going to spend all that time trying to figure out how to make sure to get off of him in the right way. Hoping the news breaks my way because he is way too cheap. It's absolutely stupid. JT, can you help us out? Because I hate playing Porzingis. He's the worst guy to play. Me and Hoop never get him right. That's why I just thought, why don't I just cross him off all year long and I'll just figure it out from there. Variance will play in my favor. Some days I'll lose. Some days I'll absolutely crush because I just don't play Porzingis cheap.
Yeah. It's not a comfortable roster. And I think that they did a really good job here, as Hoop mentions, coming off a big game against the Bulls. He's got a matchup that he's done well in the past. They've got smaller guys down low now outside of Eubanks, right? And it's that 6'6" price point. And I can't figure out if it's a trap or not. I think that more than likely he's going to get to where he doesn't kill you, but he is also the type of player where all of a sudden something could hurt or ache and he sees 20 minutes. So hopefully that's not the case, because the first line of my build, I just kept landing on him just because of that price point. But the other thing about this is I'm seeing wildly varied ownership projections. So I look at one site that has him very low at 6%. Then I look at another site that has him up at 30%. And I will say that if he's 30% on an 11-game slate, there are plenty of pivots in the power forward position.
Yeah. I'm going to do my best not to. I'm going to say that right now. Hoop, that's our plan, right? Do our best to get off him if we can. Is that the plan there, Hoop?
Yeah, I mean, I just always hate playing him, but then I see the price tag at 6.6, a few good games here, close spread. But it just sucks when you know how it ends either way. Like if you fade him, he's going for like 45 fantasy points. He's going to get like 7 threes and like 5 blocks and a couple steals. If you play him, he's going to suck. He's going to go like 0 for 11 and get you like 15 fantasy points. It just that's one of the most hurtful things in DFS where you know what the result is and it's a lose-lose for you.
I think for me, the two things here are the minutes have been up, right? He was on this kind of minutes restriction. And I mean, you go from Rick Carlisle to Jason Kidd. It's like, okay, there's like no difference in the head coach, right? You're not getting any information. You don't know what the hell he's doing with rotations. He's been a little bit better at the guards, but the minutes have been up and you've got Kleber that's still out, right? So it's not like there's another body that they can come and replace him with. So there's some things that those two things and the price, it's, and it's a good spot. It's a good spot against the Spurs team that is weaker defensively than you would otherwise think.
Yeah, it is, but man, I'm doing my best. I just want to move on from this. I can't talk about it too much more. Don't think this is a game that I love. I know in my MME, I'm pretty sure I already went through the pool and X'd them all out. There might be a one or two guys that snuck in, but I'm pretty sure I X'd it when I went through. Let's move on. Let's go to the Hawks and the Nuggets here. And Jokic, man, 11.7K, but he's off a game where he had to sit back. He was drinking some wine, having a good time at home, and now he gets to play here against the Hawks. And the Hawks, they have some injuries now, Hoop, right? But the guys, they're back, I think, and I don't think we want to play them. I mean, sure, Clint Capella on FanDuel, he's cheap. Trae Young, he's one of those guys where if you look at this slate, he's in the 9K range. He's still technically a star that's not priced at 11K. So I think he's in play, but I do think there's better guards. Like I prefer James Harden to Trae Young here in this spot against the Nuggets. And then I do think that Will Barton, he's priced up too now at 6.9K. So I don't know. It's not a game I love, Hoop. What are you doing here with some of these players?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a super appealing game. I mean, kind of ironic because last slate for the Nuggets, I mean, we were just jamming like 4 or 5 guys because Jokic is out. Now Jokic is back. Will Barton has been playing great, but that price tag is now up to like 7K. So, I mean, for me on the Nuggets side, it's just going to be Jokic. I mean, you could see him just coming back and just putting up like 75 fantasy points tonight if this game is indeed close. On the Hawks side, I mean, you can't do anything until you get this news. This game's at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're probably not going to have this news at the time of roster lock. So it makes it a little bit difficult. But if Bogdanovich and Hunter were out again, I mean, we have Kevin Huerter, who just went bonkers, played 40 minutes, put up 42 fantasy points. He's only 4K. So, I mean, if both those guys are out, it'd be hard not to go right back to Kevin Huerter at 4K. I mean, he played 40 minutes. He's going to play a ton if those guys are out. I don't know how questionable they really are. We haven't got much news about either of them today. No indication, no lean on whether or not they're going to be in or out. Makes it pretty difficult. So, yeah, it would probably just be Jokic for me in this game. I think he's a phenomenal spend. If you have the money, I could see him coming out and, making like a statement game.
All right, JT, I'll go over to you. So the Hawks, they are 4-8 without Tony Snell, right? I mean, you trade your best player. That's what happens there, JT. The Hawks, they're definitely been a bit rough to start out this year. I don't know. It's a big slate. I think I'm just going to stay away from most of the Hawks. Maybe on FanDuel, Clint Capella, he is very cheap, 6.3K, but I don't really want to mess with him. And then Jokic on DK, I do like him because we have a lot of value on the slate. And if you plug in a lot of value plays, Jokic is my favorite, I think, raw points play. It's either him or Giannis. How about you, JT? What are you doing here with Jokic and some of these other options?
Yeah, I like Jokic in this spot, coming back after the 1-game suspension. And what's been a good matchup for opposing centers when games have been close. The thing you mentioned about the Hawks, they're spiraling, right? They retain Nate McMillan as the coach, and they're getting a Nate McMillan coach team, which is no creativity. They played slow. And the thing that's harming them the most is their defense has taken several steps back this season, which has allowed teams to really put up a lot of significant fantasy points on them, particularly at the center position. So I like Jokic. I like that play a lot. On the flip side, guards have been doing well against the Nuggets. And certainly if I look and I see that Trae is, as I expect him to be, going to be somewhere around 5%, then yeah, in multi-entry, I will have some of him. That news is big on Bogdanovich and Hunter because you also have Cam Reddish at just either 3.8 or 3.9K. Last game, they decided to start Huerter. This is the thing with the Hawks. Huerter was completely out of the rotation 3 weeks ago. Now, instead of starting Reddish, they start Huerter. It could flip back the other way today. He could decide, all right, whatever, I like this matchup better, I'm going to start Cam Reddish. And that is big news because, as Hoop said, we saw Kevin Huerter go absolutely off the other night. He was in all of the winning lineups. So on an 11-game slate, I don't know if it'll be the key to the slate, but certainly something that I'm going to be looking at here. But in terms of this game, it's probably going to be Trae, one of those spot starters, if one or both of those guys are out, and Jokic. And then one piece of news that just did come in is Nerlens Noel was ruled out in that first game. And honestly, that makes me like that game a little bit more. Just like I said, because of low pricing, you've got Mitch Robinson at 4.0. You do still have bodies to compete there with him and Obi Toppin and Taj Gibson, who Dibs loves, and then makes it a better spot for Julius Randle. A little bit more opportunity there.
I think that's a good point. And since we're circling back to games, JT, let's circle back to a game that I missed. We didn't talk Grizzlies and Suns. So a chatter, let us know in the chat. So I appreciate that. I think his name's Jay Mitchell. So thank you. Let's go back and talk about it because there is news in that game, right? Steven Adams is questionable. And we got DeAndre Ayton, or as our boy DC likes to call him, Mr. Ayton. He is doubtful for this game. Let's go and talk about Adams news because that's big. If he is out, man, Jaren Jackson could see a nice little run at the center position, but he is dealing with JaVale McGee and Frank Kaminsky, who now is absolutely dominating apparently. So Jaren Jackson could have his hands full, but he is a great fantasy producer, Hoop, and he does like the foul. It's not a guy like Porzingis, but I do, the Jaren Jackson roster experience is not a fun one, Hoop. What are you doing with Jaren Jackson if Steven Adams is out and some of these other guys in the Suns and Grizzlies game?
Yeah, so I mean, if Adams is out, pretty significant news. I mean, you'd have to imagine mid-30s for Jackson, but you know what the risk is. I mean, he'll go out there and he's handsy. He likes to use his hands, not in a good way. We talk about the workbench and things like that, the Eiffel Tower. That's when you want to be handsy. When you're on the basketball court, not so much. And but he's been better with it lately, and the production has been. I mean, he's been 32, 32, 37, 42 fantasy points. So he's been playing very well, rebounds, hits threes. If Adams is out, I think he'd be a phenomenal play on this slate. Another guy that's just got a bad price tag, DeAnthony Melton's been playing very solid, 4.8K on DraftKings, 4.8K coming off back-to-back 30 fantasy point games, 30 and then 33. So I think he's a really good value play. Probably about it though. Like JaVale McGee's popping in some projections. I think there's way better value than a guy that probably plays like 18 minutes. Bridges, small forwards are pretty bad on DK. So I think you can play Bridges there at 5K. He'll play 35 minutes. You hope he gets like 25 fantasy points. The ceiling is very capped. With playing with Chris Paul and Booker and whatnot. So favorite play here, Jaren Jackson. If Adams is out, he becomes an even better play. DeAnthony Melton is a solid value. But I do think Steven Adams does play. It's just, man, tough dude. Like he rarely misses games. So kind of leaning him playing, but either way, I think Jackson's in play here.
Well, Hoop, that's our pivot, right? No Porzingis at 6'6". Just go to Jaren Jackson.
There it is. 6'2". Yeah, so, perfect. Good call.
Arm in arm on that.
Yeah.
JT, are you arm in arm with us being Jaren Jackson over Porzingis? And man, Suns in Memphis, it seems like a fun game. The pace has been up for both these teams, but I don't want to pay for these stars. I don't want to pay for Chris Paul, Devin Booker. It's a bad matchup for Ja Morant. It feels like a better spot to maybe take a couple of value plays like a Jaren Jackson, like maybe McGee. What are you doing here with some of these value plays in this game?
Yeah, I mean, where Jaren Jackson is too handsy, Porzingis is just not handsy enough, right? I mean, you want him to be a little bit more aggressive, and it just doesn't happen. Yeah. But a great point on DeAnthony Melton, especially with Dylan Brooks going to be out in this game. So it does get him back to the opportunity he was seeing before Brooks came back here. And then if Adams is out, yes, you could play Jackson. Jackson would technically be in a great spot, but there's risk with him and foul trouble. And I think there's a sneaky, very risky play here. It's the guy behind Jaren Jackson, Brandon Clark at 3.1. If Adams is out, Clark, again, these rotations, another team, Memphis, where you're not sure what you're going to get on any given night. But if Adams is out, then he is going to be potentially the starter. And you slide Jackson over to center, and maybe you get Brandon Clark in the starting lineup at 3.1, or you get him as the backup for both the center and the power forward position. He did get up to the mid-20s a couple of games ago, got well up into the, I think, 28, 30 DraftKings points. And it's a good matchup for him. If Adams misses, I would likely like to get some Brandon Clark in my lineups.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the Bulls and the Warriors, 222.5 total. And we only have 2 games left. And if you told me you only could roster guys from the last 2 games, I'm not saying I would want to be restricted to that, but I could pull it off. I mean, these are 2 really good games to get exposure to. JT, you said earlier on, you said, there's some news to talk about with the center position with the Bulls. Kay Fallick was talking some chart stuff. So give the people what they want. I mean, the Discord chat had it all. So what do you got here for us with the Bulls and the Warriors?
Yeah, so I'll start on the Warriors side. Draymond Green is questionable here with a thigh injury. He went out midway through the second half. the other night. That was very disappointing because I had him as a late night hammer and it looked like he was on his way to a decent game. But what you did see is because he went out, Kevon Looney ended up playing close to 30 minutes, absolutely smashed. Nobody owned him because he normally plays in that Javal McGee range of 17 to 20 minutes. And now you're going to get a matchup against the Bulls without Nikola Vucevic. So pretty good matchup for him if Dre is out. The problem is we're not going to know that until later because this is a game that's going to start at 10 o'clock. On the Bulls side, I mentioned that Vucevic is out, opens up a ton of pieces. It opens up more opportunity for DeRozan, LaVine, and Lonzo Ball in particular. DeRozan probably going to be owned about 10 to 15%. LaVine looking like 20%. And Lonzo Ball is going to be just 7% owned in a matchup where he's going to be called upon to distribute. It's been a decent matchup for him before, and he's going to get more opportunity. And he's way too cheap, just 6.5K on DraftKings for Lonzo Ball. It also opens up Tony Bradley at the stone minimum 3K, likely going to start. There's some news from the Bulls that maybe Elise Johnson or Javonte Green, a rookie there for 3K, 3,100 on DraftKings. So there's a ton. And this is one of the things that Kevin Fallick was talking about, did a good job of breaking it down and said, look, it's not just Tony Bradley. There are some other value plays in Green and Johnson that people may look at as risky, but I do think it's more likely that you're going to see a committee down low. And yes, Tony Bradley can still get to 6 to 7X at 3K in 20 minutes in a good matchup. But I also think that the other two guys, Green and Elise Johnson, are going to be completely under-owned, as is going to be Lonzo Ball. So Andrew Wiggins is also very cheap on the other side at just 6'4", I think, still at 6'4", 6'5" on DraftKings. Always hate playing Andrew Wiggins, but there are a handful of teams that he does well against. The Bulls have been one of those teams. And then Curry is a guy where you're going to play him if you want to get a little bit different on this slate. He can always have a good game. The defense of the Bulls has been pretty good, so I don't see him going nuclear like he did against the Hawks a few days ago.
All right, well, JT, you mentioned Lonzo Ball is cheap on DK at 6.5. He's even cheaper at 5.8 on FanDuel, where the stocks matter too. I mean, JT, I'll just give you a little peek behind the paywall here. Lonzo Ball, he was in green earlier in the day. You already know that because you've checked out the cash chart. So he is one of the core plays on the cash chart over on FanDuel for me. Hoop, is Lonzo Ball going to be a core play for you today? What are you doing with Tony Bradley? And what are you doing with the Draymond Green news here?
Yeah, so Lonzo Ball's price tag on FanDuel, phenomenal. His game suits FanDuel scoring quite well, where he's capable of picking up the blocks and the steals along the way. 5.8, no Vucevic is a very good price tag for him. And then a bunch of other guys get boosts. I mean, LaVine on DK at 8K, I think he's a good play there. Tony Bradley, obviously the stone minimum. Alex Caruso, 4.2K on DK. I think he ends up playing, upper 20s in terms of minutes, and he's been very productive. So a lot of guys like here. DeMar DeRozan, you can also play. He's been playing really solid all season. Then you get the Draymond Green news on the Warrior side, questionable. I mean, this is a 10 p.m. Eastern game. Probably not going to get this news. I suspect he does play, but if he doesn't, Bielitsa, I think, becomes a really good value play at 3.2K. And that's one of these situations here where, everyone's playing Tony Bradley at 3K. What if Bielitsa becomes a play and you can pivot off the chalk a little bit? If you're playing from behind, Mangone, you always talk about doing these late swaps and cash games. If you're playing from behind, your opponent's going to have Tony Bradley. Just make that pivot to Bielitsa if Draymond Green's out. So definitely a situation that you can take advantage of. Jordan Poole, I think, is a good play here too. Just playing a lot of minutes and has shown the ability to be pretty productive. So yeah, there's a lot of plays here in this game.
Yeah, Hoopa, it's actually funny you mentioned that. I did the play from behind yesterday. I was behind on DK, went from 0 profit to break even. So that matters sometimes. So I do like that call. Bielitsa is someone that has a massive ceiling at that price. It's rare you can find a guy in the 3K range that could get you 40 to 50 fantasy points. Not saying it'll happen, but it's definitely possible for a guy like Bielitsa. JT, let's go on over to the last game. Let's talk Timberwolves. Let's talk Lakers. And I want to talk about this one because Westbrook, Davis. They seem like two really good spend up options, especially because some of these other studs, they are priced up. We also don't have LeBron there. We have Carmelo Anthony, who's not a bad price tag, who is willing to chuck the ball against a Timberwolves team that they struggle to defend the jump shot, right? That 3-pointer, which Melo will happily shoot. And then you got Anthony Edwards, who I absolutely love. Karl-Anthony Towns at 10-3 that I think could dominate. Pat Beverly at a cheap price tag, and a D'Angelo Russell revenge game. And not only that, JT, another narrative for you. Do you know whose birthday it is in this game, JT Hayes?
I think I do. I think I do. Do you want to tell the people, or should I tell the people?
No, you love narratives. Tell the people whose birthday it is, JT, and why he's a narrative guy. He is going to go out there and have a big game on his birthday.
It's happy birthday to Russ. They're going to give him a cake at halftime, are they not?
There you go. So, JT, is that the reason you play him, or do you play him because LeBron is out? It's a good match against the Timberwolves. No, you play him because it's his birthday, JT, and it's going to be a good day, I think, for Russell Westbrook. What are you doing with him and Davis? First of all, break down which one you like more. I think you're going to lean Westbrook because it's his birthday. And then some of the other options, because I think this is a great game to target in fantasy. And if a lot of other games bust, man, if you're just sitting back here with this Lakers-Timberwolves game, you're going to be feeling really good about loading up on some of these guys.
Yeah, birthdays and revenge are really the way that I start my lineups, right? Is it anybody's birthday? Is anybody, maybe someone mentioned Otto Porter in the chat, right? Has anyone that's on the slate played for almost every NBA team and maybe played for the team they're playing against 7 teams ago? Those are things that I weight very heavily, but I actually ranked them AD 1, Russ 2, simply because of the defensive matchup. Not that the Minnesota Timberwolves are any good against guards, but I think we saw that, the other night, Russ went off. I think Russ is going to have a good game here as well, but I'm going to start with AD and then move down to Russ. You mentioned Carmelo Anthony. There are a number of injuries to the other guards as well for the Los Angeles Lakers. Malik Monk had a big game the other night. He's still priced pretty low. And I'm probably not going to touch Avery Bradley or Wayne Ellington, just not going to bank on them doing anything remotely close to making value for my teams. But Monk is a guy that I think has a lot of talent. And if he gets that 20, 24 minutes at his price point in this matchup, I think he can be good on that side of the ball. Probably going to stay away from Karl-Anthony Towns because I like AD and I'm not going to be paying up twice in that price range. But Anthony Edwards, monster game the other night against the Golden State Warriors. He's turning into a superstar. This is a guy who is now, I would say, the alpha on this team. He was talking a couple of weeks in the press about having to educate Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell about giving up the ball when they're trapped, about giving up the ball when there's a defender in their face. So he's taking on some leadership here. It's very good to see. He's still at a very low price point. I do think he can play Russell here just because the matchup is so good. It's the top matchup points given up on the board is point guards against the Lakers. So a lot of goodness here in this game. And 2.5 point spread. And as we've seen, the Lakers, even when they're winning, all these games have been staying close. So an awesome late night hammer here on the Lakers and the Wolves.
Yeah, and imagine, JT, imagine what happens when Ant Edwards actually gets superstar calls. The dude won't be able to be stopped. He is awesome. I'm excited to roster him tonight at 8.1K. I think he's a great play. Hoop, I'll go over to you. A lot to like in this game. All the narratives. There's some revenge. There's stars to pay for. What are you doing here with this game, Hoop?
Yeah, not as high. I think there are some plays, but I'm not as excited. Like on the Timberwolves, the only guy I think I'd be playing tonight is Anthony Edwards. I think he's a really good play. He's turning into a play that's good, like a good play every night. They're letting him play 40 minutes. Like there's not many guys in the league that play 40 minutes. He's played 38, 32, 43, and then 42 minutes. Like he'll play a ton. Production has been great. He's just turning into a superstar. Makes it hard to play Karl-Anthony Towns. Makes it hard to play D'Angelo Russell. So for me, it's just going to be Edwards on the Timberwolves side. And then you move over to the Lakers. I agree. Anthony Davis should just absolutely destroy this matchup, just absolutely crush. And the nice thing here is it's only a 2-point spread. So this game is looking to be a competitive one. And love Anthony Davis. I don't even hate Westbrook. Like I'd be fine playing him too. I'd definitely be getting exposure to both these guys if I was going to build 150 lineups tonight. Russ coming off 2 back-to-back 60 fantasy point games. one of the two is going off tonight. I prefer Anthony Davis, but it could easily be Russell Westbrook. I want exposure to both of them in tournaments. But, I'm not playing any of these other dust balls on their team. Like I have no interest. So it's just going to be Edwards, Russ, and Anthony Davis. I think they're all really strong plays tonight.
And don't forget about the narrative that matters here, the Kentucky narrative, Anthony Davis and Karl Anthony Towns. Always like to put up big points against each other.
Oh, for sure. Definitely going to be a good one. All the narratives, JT, nice and late at night to just sit back and relax with what's your drink of choice, JT? You're going to be sitting back watching all narratives. What are you drinking tonight to close the night out here, JT?
Yeah, it all depends. I mean, it depends on how much clothing I have left on, but I think I'll be having some nice Coors Lights tonight. Very tasty. The mountains will be blue, and we'll see. Watch this game, late night hammer, root on my lineups, and who knows? Who knows what could happen?
You'll love to see it. Guys, hit that like, hit that subscribe, helps us out a ton. Hoop, what are the rich parents buying us? What drinks do the rich parents buy for the people? They got to buy some. They're not buying Natty Ice, right? They're buying some real good stuff for the people.
I have been on a rich parentsy type kick, red wine. Like I'm not usually a big wine drinker, but I've been more into like red wine, and that definitely is like rich parent type drink. So red wine, our boy Helmet is a very good maker of shots. He's really into producing these shots. The last time I was over at Helmet's house, our producer Helmet, he's made some really tasty shots. So been onto those. But tonight I think it's going to might be on some whiskeys. Might be down in some whiskeys tonight. I'm going for the kill tonight, boys.
All right. Well, let's
go
go
on Monday then, Hoop.
All right, let's go for the kill, Hoop. Let's get your play of the day. The rich parents are bringing us the winners here. Who do we got here, Hoop? Who is the rich parents play of the day?
Oh, there's a lot of options on the slate. Man, I really got to narrow it down here. Where are we going to go? Couple options. I'm thinking. All right, we're going to go to the Kings, and I hope Halliburton's out because if he's in, this play is kind of dust. But De'Aaron Fox has just been crushing without Halliburton. Halliburton's out. We're going to go to De'Aaron Fox as the rich parents play of the day. Now, if Halliburton's in, we'll go to a game a little bit later, and we'll go with Zach LaVine. I know he'll be popular, but I think LaVine gets it done tonight.
Out of your pivot if you have to. It's a pretty big slate. So
well,
I think Halliburton will be out. I'm going to go to my play of the day. And looking at this slate, I think a lot of teams are going to end up at least paying for a star or two. And I think one of the winning routes could be playing values and just playing a lot of these guys in like the 8K range or 9K range, like maybe getting 3 of them, or maybe grabbing like a 6K guy and 2 8K or 9K guys. And one of those guys I'm going to grab is Anthony Edwards at that 8-1 price tag, 8-2. He's around now. He has a monster ceiling at that price, something that I want to get exposure to. And it's a game that I want to get exposure to. And you can run it back with a Westbrook or Davis if you like, and then load up on all the value. But it's time to hop on the jet, get on the Air France to check out JT's Eiffel Tower play of the day. The people want it. The people need it. JT, who do you got?
That's the Eiffel Tower play of the day. It is brought to you by Air France. France is in the air. Don't ever forget that. And look, the Bulls are down. A big piece of their offense, Nikola Vucevic. Everyone is going to look to Tony Bradley. A lot of people are going to look to Zach LaVine. Some people are going to look to DeMar DeRozan, and that's going to leave my guy, Lonzo Ball. Way too cheap, just 6.5K on DraftKings. He's going to go for 50 DraftKings points tonight, at least, in this matchup against the Warriors. He's going to be swishing and dishing all night long. Lonzo Ball, Eiffel Tower play of the day.
All right, all the swishing and dishing for Lonzo Ball. Excited to get him into my lineups. You should too. If you want to check out any of the other content, we'll have college football, we'll have college basketball, we'll have everything that you need over here at Run Pure Sports. Use that code RPS Heater 25, get you 25% off. And once you use that, go check out the final countdown show with, I believe, JSU and Big T. Maybe, I don't know if it's for sure them, but you got to check it out. They got the winners for you. Big T's core will be up. JSU's core will be up. AP's heat chart. We got it all over here at Run Pure. So be sure to check that out. But for me, Van Gone Hoop and JT Hayes, we will see you guys later.